Hello, hello, welcome back.
Hi, how are we?
Am I up too early?
You're up early, but it's fine, you're here now.
You're not supposed to be up here yet.
Right, so yeah, I don't know if we need much, well, I don't think I need much of an introduction, but I know I got abuse for not dressing up for the panel, so I hope I've made up for it now. I'm Neil from Gorgeous, and this is my esteemed colleague.
I'm Roddy from reviews.io/AppHub.
Yeah, so just before we get started, I was taking a look at what Austin was famous for, and there's three things. So number one, cowboys, obviously. The second is live music, and the third is comedy. So just to kick things off, would anyone like a joke? Yeah, right answer. Right, okay. Why did the e-commerce man? No, let me start again. Why did the e-commerce manager get off the trampoline? Because he was scared of his bounce rate. Yeah, that's it, more of that.
All right, well, I'll take over here. So a quick PSA. We need everybody to keep their answers short, so no Shakespearean monologues. We are trying to keep a tight schedule here, tighter than Neil's pants.
Or lack thereof.
That joke didn't work. But anyways, let's dive right into it. So I'm excited about this panel. It's one that's near and dear to my heart because I have fucked up a lot. Leading it will be Darren Lynch, the man who needs no introduction and the reigning MVP from yesterday's basketball, alongside Manuel, Brad, Leah, Tavish, and Yost. So please, come on up. Yeehaw! Thank you.
All right, while the panel's getting seated, I'll kick off with a few comments. First of all, it's been an endless parade of praise for Rachel today, but that is well deserved. So let's kick off the afternoon with a round of applause for Rachel. We bust each other's chops a lot, but don't let that fool you. She's a ride or die friend of mine, and if you fuck with Rachel, you fuck with me. So I can fuck with her though. Moving on, I was talking to some of the other grizzled veterans yesterday and today, and when we started our companies and when we were growing our companies, we didn't have this. And so what Rachel's built for all of us, what she's done for all of us, that's something that I think we all need to take advantage of, right? The ways we can learn from each other, the way we can have shenanigans along the way, both of those are important to capitalize on. So I think that we should all be appreciative of that. The panel is titled Fuck Ups, right? The Fuck Up panel, or whatever. The Fuck Up edition. And so what we're really going to be talking about is the fuck ups that we've endured, the fuck ups we've navigated, but the panelists themselves are not fuck ups, me notwithstanding, right? So we want to make that clear. These panelists are founders, leaders, they've built and grown companies, they've helped merchants grow their businesses, and so there's a lot of rich experience to mine here. One of the things that I believe is that running a business and growing it is more like a history channel than a Hallmark channel, right? It's like learning and observing what's gone well so you can repeat that intentionally, observing what's been a fuck up so you can make sure to avoid that intentionally. That's way more important to how we build and grow our businesses than some of the fluffy distractions that you would associate with the Hallmark channel. So this is the history channel of fuck ups that we're about to get into. All right, so before we kick off actual content, why don't we start with introductions? Tavish, on your side, coming this way.
Hi, check. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tavish Pimani. I am the CEO and founder of Massstrat Digital. We are an email and SMS retention marketing agency based out of Toronto. However, our entire team is remote, mostly based in Latin America, and sometimes in Pakistan, and sometimes in Canada. We've been working with direct-to-consumer brands for about 7 years, and we help them generate between 25 to 36, 37% of the revenue through email and SMS retention strategies.
Hi, my name is Manuel. I'm from Ondevi. We're like a German-based agency doing Google Ads and email marketing for 4 years now. And yeah, happy to be here.
My name is Joost. I work for Droxic. We are a software development company been doing this for the last 13 years, and in those 13 years, e-commerce has become a more and more bigger part of what we're doing.
My name is Brad. I run Drive Digital in Brisbane, Australia. We're a Shopify design and development agency focused on customer experience, integrations, that sort of thing. We've got a team of about 15, and we've got our core team on site, but we've also got a remote component as well. So yeah.
My name is Leia Gucciardi, and as many of you picked up, you can remember my name if, like the princess from Star Wars, just imagine me with space buns. That's how you can remember my name. I'm the founder of Arc Design Studio. We work mostly with women-owned brands in the D2C space. We do design and build and Klaviyo, but we're actually transitioning into doing Shopify for service-based brands in the space, using both tools as well.
And I'm Darren Lynch, founder and CEO of Irish Titan. We're an e-com agency that builds and grows e-commerce channels. That's how I summarize it. I started the company about 20 years ago. We have, I think, 44 Titans right now, something like that. And we have a Titan-only model, meaning we do all of our work with just our Titans, no contractors, freelancers, or offshore resources. There's nothing wrong with those models. And I'm only sharing that because that might provide context for any of the fuck-ups that I share. One quick comment before we actually dive in. You can hear from some of the accents on stage that we covered a lot of ground globally, and Rachel tried to fuck me up with coordinating this panel that spanned 17 hours of time zone. Like, what are you going to do next year? Add somebody from Mars? But we pulled it off. Okay, so let's dive in. The arc of our content is really themed in 4 ways. We're going to start by talking about sales and strategy. Then we're going to talk a little bit about clients and delivery, then people, and we're going to end with something that we themed the founder's journey and mistakes along the way, things we've learned to try to navigate all those ditches. So, Leah, I know we're going to start with you. I don't know why my goddamn iPad keeps locking. I have it turned off. Okay, so sales isn't easy. There's so much outside of our control with sales. Like when we're talking about how we execute and deliver on projects, theoretically, that's in our virtual 4 walls. Whereas sales, so much is impacted and driven by the prospect and what they're going through and all those sorts of things. So when we start to experience traction in sales, we tend to get a little bit excited. You've learned a lesson on this front. Would you share it?
Yeah, so I think a lot of fuck-ups have a lot of context behind them, because when we make a mistake, it's often because we're backed into a corner and it just was the better choice of the choices we were presented with. And the problem I was facing was just chronic burnout, because a lot of our leads, we have a very strong inbound book of business through Instagram and social media organically. Because we work with a lot of female founders, that's where a lot of them hang out and want to actually like build relationships. And we have a very customer intimate kind of relationship in terms of our inbound leads. And so we were finding a lot of success there. We were getting around like 80 sales calls per month with no ad spend, totally organically. And so when we were going into Q4, we actually lost a key member of our delivery team that I had to step in and kind of replace that asset, essentially. And that meant that I was going to lose 70% of my capacity to do that outbound lead generation for my own marketing, making videos, making content. And so we were doing so well there, and I had a playbook, very, very drawn out process. Over many years, I'd been able to practice my pitch. And I was like, okay, it's time to outsource this, hire a social media management agency. Well, long story short, we went from getting 80 leads organically per month to literally 0 in about 3 months, and $15,000 later, we were in a lagging period of that loss of inquiries. So that was very, very, very painful. But I turned that into a positive, because essentially I learned what this SMM agency did and was able to kind of now create my own new strategy for outbound marketing as well. And so we've actually picked that up to around 120 leads per month, and I'm now going to be hiring a salesperson. So I was able to kind of take their systems and see what the fuck that they did wrong. And a lot of it was removing myself as being the founder-led sales, and having my face be part of the communication and connection piece for the founders who just really were more of the amiable buyer type. So they weren't really driven by statistics of we can drive 35% of your revenue. That was kind of falling on deaf ears for them, which I kind of found out. So it was more of that building relationships and friends first type of marketing from that channel that I was doing really well on. And when it wasn't me, that relationship just basically went to zero, or did go to zero, because we got no leads from it. Yeah. You want to keep going?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So I was just going to say that we turned kind of that negative into a positive, and just really kind of opened my eyes on like doubling down on my community and quality, not quantity, in the type of content that I was putting out, because they were posting literally every day. And to get no leads from everyday posting just really shows you that it's not quality, it is quantity, and the depth of relationships there for the marketing and sales.
Yeah, and I think that some of what you touched on we'll dig into in that founder's journey part too, right? Like in shifting from being founder-led to founder-driven, and some of the mistakes along the way. Yost, with you and your Cyndi Lauper Bananarama shoes, let's hear from you a little bit with some of the sales challenges that you've endured and navigated. You know, casting a wide net. If you sell everything to everybody, how do you avoid being nothing to everybody? I know that you've had some challenges along the way there.
I think one of the biggest challenges we had in the beginning is we didn't even know what we were doing. So what I mean with it is that we were just hitting on everything, trying to get, you know, every piece of sales in, and just overpromise and in the end underdeliver without actually having clear on, you know, who do we want to service for, what kind of work do we want to do, what kind of work are we actually good at. And yeah, that costed us dearly, where we just also had clients coming in that were maybe great by name, but if you then look at it, what they really want and what they really want to do is not what we do. And you try to facilitate them because, you know, hey, it's work, we can do this, yes, we will help you out. And already after 1, 2, 3 months, you just, you know, find out that what they want is not what we can do. And you're just basically stuck with them. And of course, you try to solve it, you try to maybe hire somebody that you know that can help you out. But in the end, those are all additional costs on top of something that you don't do, which is already taking a lot more time. And then in the end, yeah, you just spend so much money trying to be happy with a well-known brand or well-known company, and in the end, you just spend so much money on nothing.
And I think, Brad, you can build on some of that too, because you've shared some experiences where you're, as I would put it, your spidey sense is tingling, right? That this prospect's an asshole, or this prospect is not a good fit for us, but you want to get the deal in. You know, you're torn between revenue and fit, those sorts of things. So I think that you probably have some fuck-ups to share and some learnings.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that spidey sense can tingle, and I think we need to learn to trust it. I think you can get into positions, and one of the things that was mentioned here last year in Toronto, actually, around, you know, not any decision that you're making for short-term value of dollars is generally not a good decision. It needs to be something for long-term strategy, and it's something that we've had problems with in the past, where, you know, you've got sales targets, you've got numbers to hit. You want to kind of make, you know, you've got to make decisions on that side, and then as a business owner, trying to think about the long-term strategy and how you're shaping and strategizing your agency to make sure that the clients you're bringing in are the right fit for you and the right fit for where you want to go. And I think we've had a situation where it wasn't an enterprise client. So this client took 14 months, I think, to close a deal. Someone earlier was saying that that's sort of like, that's okay for an enterprise client. This is an SMB, and it wasn't okay for them to take 14 months to close a deal. And I knew, right, you know, I knew that wasn't the right thing to do. The spidey sense was firing off, but you've got sales targets and things like that. And I was like, no, I'm going to do it anyway. And as a result, there's no surprise, 25 months later, the project, a 6-month project, still hadn't closed out. And you know, some serious lessons being learnt from that around that qualification process. And not just the pressure that it places on sales and things like that. You've got to balance that out with the long-term strategy of, like, projects are about retainers, are long, long relationships that you're establishing with clients, but also the pressure it's placing on your team and making sure that you're doing the right thing by your team and bringing in the right people. Because if you don't, you're disrupting your team, all your valuable staff, as well as then disrupting your current clients. So yeah, I think we've got a lot tighter on that project qualification, and it leads into some of the stuff about delivery process, because some of the things that go wrong in the delivery process are all solvable right up front with better qualification. We've had some other issues with some of our delivery process as well, and one of the things I just want to say about Rachel's community here is that when we were in some of those situations where we had, like Joost was saying, that there's being all things to all people, trying to do that early on and being in a position where you weren't aligned with what your core competencies are, ending up in a difficult position, trying to deliver something for a client, and drawing on the community here was something that really helped get us through that, and learning from other agency owners who I got on calls with other agency owners. They'd all had exactly the same experience. So the idea of sharing that with everybody here has been a really powerful time when you feel quite alone in the midst of a fuck up. Yeah.
Can I add something? Yeah, and also the biggest learning for me was once you have a process in place, once you have your own identity in place, trust yourself. Don't go and try to change yourself. And this will also help you be much more confident in if it's a fit, yes or no, just like you said. And if you follow the process, if you do what you normally always want to do, then you know that you will deliver. But if there's a client that already says, yeah, but I don't want this, this, and this to be done, that should already be enough for you to say, okay, I actually don't want to work with you, because either we do it my way or it's the highway.
Were you going to? Yeah, go for it.
Can I ask you guys, because a lot of us who have said yes to opportunities we should have said no to, it's usually a pressure of filling a gap in payroll or saying yes to an opportunity where you maybe wanted to diversify your offering, and that was like the golden ticket to maybe get into that. Did you have that nugget of like, oh, maybe not is now the right time, but just like that internal pressure of you need to make payroll or whatever it was that like made you say yes when you wanted to say no?
Yeah, I think definitely a driver there, and trying to maybe inexperience or that learning without having learnt that the hard way. It's one of those things that people tell you, but without actually experiencing that learning, to then proceed, put in better processes to make those decisions and guide you around those decisions, and also to trust your gut too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that what drives that appetite for deals that are sometimes not a good fit are two things, right? Filling a gap in payroll and expansion of services, unintentional or intentional. And I think the gap in payroll really emphasizes and underscores the need to be fiscally sound, right? Like there's a saying I heard once, revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, cash is reality, right? And if you run your business responsibly, that will help you maybe be a little less prone to taking a swing at something just because you're trying to fill payroll. On the expansion of services, one of the things that I've used a lot over the years is this model from McKinsey. It's their Horizons model that maybe some people have heard of, but it talks about Horizon 1, 2, and 3. And Horizon 1 are those things that should be your bread and butter, your cash cow, things you should execute really well every goddamn day. H2, Horizon 2, are new services that are adjacent to that, right? Like maybe if you're a build shop, you start to do some of the marketing side of it. Or if you really go deep in email, maybe you start to add loyalty or whatever it might be, right? Adjacent to it. And Horizon 3 are those things that if you repackaged all of your talents and skills, what would that business look like? If you think of those horizons and understand where that work fits, that also will help you temper some of your expectations, because you shouldn't expect as strong a margin, for example, on H2 sort of stuff. And you probably shouldn't even be doing H3 stuff, right? Like that's more sandbox, kind of skunkworks projects and pulling it into H2. So those models have helped me figure out how to approach those and maybe not get as pissed sometimes if there's mistakes, or conversely to hold us to a high standard. If it's H1 work, we shouldn't be fucking up. Tabish, this conversation in the panel prep surfaced some opportunities on your side that I think are relevant to this, right? Because we talked about how sometimes we're desperate or thirsty to get sales in. Well, once we have a client, we're loath to fire them, loath to let go of them. We sometimes go too far in trying to please them. I know that you had some observations around that.
Yeah, absolutely. I have two actually. One in line with what Leah was talking about. We picked up a client where they were with another agency, and that agency belonged to a friend of mine. It's a really small industry. A lot of us know each other, and right out of the gate, they were kind of not really talking well about the other agency, and my spidey senses started tingling. We couldn't really match their energy, and so we took them on board, trying to fill up the payroll gap. Fundamentally, that's what it was. We had enough cash reserves because of the way we bill, but that relationship didn't last not even a year, and we weren't really happy with that because we're trying to solve for one problem and we're just not able to match the other partner's energy. And then the more painful one I think I can mention is we had a client a few years ago, and travel was starting to pick back up after COVID, and they were in the travel industry, and they had 7 different Shopify stores across different countries, and so they wanted us to focus on their primary USA, North America site, and so we were doing their email and SMS marketing. I used their product, so I knew really well how to sell it, and then they said, hey, Tabish, can you take over Canada, UK, can do a little bit of France and ANZ. And we talked about it and we said, okay, as long as it's kind of trickled down, considering all the products are the same, the offerings are the same, we're more than happy to do it at a marginally high additional cost to each account. And so that was to date our highest retainer. And when I talked to the email industry partners, I know that we were in 5 digits for just that one account, where most people are like 5,000 to 7,000 per month range. And what it turned out to be was each region had some products missing, and so they were substituted with other products. They didn't have the same bundles. And during Black Friday, Cyber Monday, we're running 5 different accounts at that time. Each we're monitoring for deliverability. We have different sales, we have different bundles, we have different percentages off, and it was such a nightmare for us to manage. But we'd under-promised, over-delivered, but also said that we're going to be agile and we're going to adapt to your needs. But that was just too much. Like that was very stressful for my team, and to the point where it took up 80% of our resources, and we're not a massive team, but 80% of our resources going to one client's a little scary, because if you do that at the expense of other clients, you're kind of like, okay, you might lose that, but do you really want to lose this one? So it's always trying to find a balance, trying to reconcile how much you can give to the client, how much you can ramp up while staying within scope, not letting scope creep happen. And I let that get to my head. That was my fuck up, right? I let it get to my head. Come January, I said, hey, look, we've done all this work, but we can't keep executing the same way. And you guys either need to pay us more, and I could have done a much better job handling that. You either need to pay us more, you need to allow us to do things the way that we want to do it, without a little bit of that micromanaging / asking questions, where we need to focus a lot more on educating you. And that was our fuck up. And so we eventually lost that client, and that was like the biggest mistake I made. And so if I could go back in the past and tell myself, what is the learning from this? Set better expectations and set better precedents, because you're only going to do a favor to your team, you're going to do a favor to your mental sanity, and your client's going to know what to expect. So they're, when they kind of go out of bounds, you're going to be able to rein them in a little bit. So yeah, trying to find a way to please them, keep that money, keep that payroll going, but also not at the cost of your sanity and peace of mind.
And Manuel, I know that you had a really interesting comment, I thought, about where you valued some things that the client would provide too highly, and change some of your pricing, change some of your services, and really bent over backwards to try and capitalize on that. Share that learning, will you? Because I think that was really interesting.
Yeah, so we basically were like about to work together with like one of the OG YouTube influencers in Germany. So he's like pretty huge and known, but also like in the business space because he founded his own like supplement brand and fitness clothing brand. And then when we were like negotiating about the price, they wanted to reduce the retainer by like 1,000 euros, I think. And then we were like, yeah, okay, but then let's do some LinkedIn posts, and then it should be fine because then we get some leads and stuff. And then like when he posted, we were like pretty pumped and looking like, yeah, okay, what will happen? And like also like till now, nothing happened. So not a single lead came across this, but we like reduced the retainer. And now the issue is then when it's time like to renegotiate the contract, they can use it like to pressure you. They say like, okay, no, we don't increase the retainer, and you want to keep them as a client. Right. So it's like getting harder. And but you know that the LinkedIn posts are worth nothing. But he says, yeah, why don't we do again LinkedIn posts and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think that when we're reliant on a client, or I shouldn't say reliant, but when we prioritize too much value in what a client can provide with case studies, et cetera, we're at risk, right, of not pricing our services right or holding on to them if they turn into a toxic client, et cetera. So that was an interesting observation.
Yeah, and maybe like one add-on, because I think you also mentioned it in your workshop that like case studies are not just about like the logo nowadays, I would say, because the I see more and more that the potential clients want to call with the case studies like the brands to really talk about like what did we really do, not just like, oh, hey, we work together with, I don't know, Mercedes or so, and then they say, wow, cool, let's work together. It's more like they really want to know what happened and want to hear it from the client and not you.
So let's start to shift into some of the people-driven themes. Business would be so easy if it weren't for clients and employees, right? And so just like we hold on to clients too long sometimes and are too desperate for a prospect to land, I think sometimes we struggle to navigate people, right? Brad, I know that one of the things that you talked about were some of the things you've learned with the value in hiring and training and managing and what's worked and what hasn't. You want to share some of that with the crowd?
Yeah, I think people is one of those things that it's a constant learning. People are unpredictable, and I think there's, you need really, really solid processes around it. And I think that without, our agency is all about the people in our agency and having that strong culture that you bring to it, the strong processes, the training. Without that, things can turn south pretty quickly. And I think we've been guilty of that, and I think it's inspired us to really double down on that and get really strong on our culture and on our learning and training, because I think, when you put people into positions with the best intentions, with seeing their potential but not scaffolding that with the right training and outcomes, then that's when things can damage things very, very quickly. And especially, if we're talking about sort of, I guess, the arc of this, where we're looking at owner-led to being owner-driven, and I think taking yourself out of that, you really, at the early stages of that, when you've got a core small team, each of those people that you hire is so fundamentally important. And I think when you, and it happened to you, Leah, where you lose a core member and you get sucked back in. Yep. And you lose then sight of the pipeline, you lose sight of the strategy and where you're going, because you're really easy, and it happens super easily. So I think there's some big learnings there around trying to build some robustness in that within the business. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to chime in. And something that I noticed as well is with a really small team, we have 7 people, and one of the ways that I tried to scale that without having to scale my time and work 80-hour weeks is having productized training for all of my new team members or contractors that would come in and out. But what I lost in the process is the ability to see what these new team members could add as their own flavor and take the services sometimes to the next level, because it was just rinse and repeating what we're already doing, kind of the definition of insanity, right? So when you you have that lack of one-to-one connection with them too, you also lose a little bit of the innovation that happens inside your own internal organization. So it's been a very hard thing to balance of that one-to-one training and also being able to do it at scale.
Yeah, I think that, quite honestly, most of my fuck-ups have probably been more people-related. And usually it's been more my fuck-up than the people's fuck-up. And there are some Titan alumni in the crowd that have unfortunately endured some of that. I think that when Irish Titan has hit a few milestones in growth, sometimes I wasn't always prepared with either the right level of management team, the right quantity of management team, or I had some real stars that I just threw in the deep end, and I didn't even give them a life preserver. I threw some bricks on them too. That caused us some pain. I think that I also really undervalued project management for us. So Mike, who just moved to the front, that's talking after us, who's a Titan alumni in good standing, as are all the alumni in here, he was part of what really turned us around in 2017 or 16, and when we blew up our project management practice and put it back together differently, and that made all the difference in the world. So let's start to land the plane here in a couple of minutes. We've veered into this founder's journey, and we've made a few references to this phrase that came up during our call about moving from being founder-led to founder-driven. Joost, I actually want to start with you on this. And my first question is, what the fuck is up with your picture? It's like you're being erased from humanity. Did you provide that? Or are you vanishing him, Rachel?
Rachel, is that you?
But as a non-founder on the stage, but someone who's been a second in command, which was mentioned in Rachel's newsletter a week or two ago, I think you've seen a number of fuck-ups either on your behalf and how to work with founders, or on founders' behalves and not empowering teams, et cetera. So what can you share there?
Actually, quite a lot, to be honest, because over the years I've worked for several companies, not just with Droxic. But especially with one company where I came in as a business development manager and then soon sort of became the second guy in command. And we started off with, I was employee number 11. And over the course of the next 2-3 years, we grew to 50 people. But that growth also meant that we had to change everything that we did, all our processes, our approach, how we communicate, everything. And that actually went very well as long as the founder was not involved. Because everything that we did, he loved it. It was like, great, best, we're doing so much better. And then, for instance, we would explain the project managers, listen, we want to work slightly different, we're growing, so we need to communicate, we need to make different types of reports. And then he would just walk by and he would say like, what are you doing? And they said, yeah, we have to work, we have to do our reporting different, we work like this because we're doing a much better way of time tracking. And he would look at it and said, no, you don't need it, I don't think it's needed. And then you go in and you say, listen, yeah, it is actually needed, please do it like this. And then two weeks later, it's again like, no, you don't need it. And, they can say it once, twice, 3 times, and you can sort of overrule them. But at one point, they were just fucking it up by doing this. Or somebody could not go on a vacation leave, for instance, because we really had to deliver a project. It was clear, from the beginning. Normally, we're very flexible, but this had to be done. And he was really, really important for the delivery on time. And he just goes like, no, don't need to. And the reason is because his ego got actually in the way of making the company grow. He wanted to be in total control. Yes, he was delegating the work, but in the background, he was still micromanaging everything that we were doing. And, yes, he was saying, like, yeah, you have the full range, you can do what you want. But then 2-3 weeks later, I saw the changes that you did. Let's not do that. We'll go back to the old days because that always worked for us. And we were like, yeah, that works for a company when we were 12. Now we are, let's say, with 40. We just need to have a different approach. No, it will work just like that. And actually, after we left, within 2-3 years later, he was back to 6 people.
Leah, I want to come to you for the last question and then allow the rest of the panelists to chime in, because it's the last question, but I want to provide an open forum for anybody else to chime in with thoughts that come to mind. One of the things that you spoke about in relation to the founder's journey is the importance of mental hygiene with how you build your business, lead your business, et cetera. Why don't you chime in on that? Because I think that was really important. I think it's good for everyone to hear.
Yeah, so I was hit by a car when I was 12 years old, so I actually am battling a lot of chronic pain, brain injury, and a lot of kind of other residual effects as the many years have gone by. And so it's actually really hard to kind of manage my energy. Every day is totally different from the other. But also being founder-led of sales and marketing and the team management, I have to be on my A game every single day. And when it's that unpredictability, I have to be like really, really rigid with my self-care and rituals and all those types of things. But having those many hats takes a very large toll on your mental health if you're not really rigid with how you're actually managing your energy and how you're showing up and reflecting that back to their team, because my team is very much like a mirror to the way that I operate in my day-to-day. So I think that there's a lot of ways that we can actually kind of undermine ourselves as business owners. It's a bit masochistic showing up every day, like signing up for pain and torture willingly. And so just having that mindset of like, if I can just solve 3 really small problems today, I'll take that as a win, because we always have very long to-do lists and are very overachieving with a lot of them. But one of the things that I really noticed is when I am not doing well in sales, it's almost always a direct reflection of me not doing well as a person as well. And so being able to have that like objective view on like, what do I need to do to change my mental health patterns and my mental well-being and physical health to actually make sure the business stays afloat, especially as we grow and I become more depersonalized as well. Yeah.
Panel, anyone want to chime in? Manuel, Tabish, sorry.
Yeah, I think the mental health thing with us is a lot more important because my entire team is remote, so there's no office that I go to where I meet a lot of people. And I'd spend like 5 or 6 days indoors without going out, and in Toronto winters, it's just not worth it. So one of the things I was trying to do for myself, and I've been fairly successful in it, and I think I can do a lot better, is really trying to trust my team to take over a lot of the managerial aspects, trusting them to make their mistakes, but then correcting those as well. And so that's the one way that I can actually step out, go to the gym, spend some time with my daughter, which is really good for your mental health. And just coming to events like this, like I've never been to any conference because I'm always so bogged down by business. And mentally, I have no capacity, no energy to meet people. And I said, you know, after all these years, I've finally been able to work maybe 3-4 hours a day. I said, I can come here, and I'm here sitting on stage, not worried about what my team is doing because I inherently trust them now. And that's taken a little bit of time. So this has been a good reset for me. And I feel like last week what happened, or 2 weeks ago what happened was my customer success manager had to take a few days off on the tail ends of the week and the beginning of the week, and one of my clients requested something that we weren't expecting them to, and it always happens. And so I asked the account coordinator, hey, do you know what the client is talking about? Are you able to take care of it? And they said, no, but I can kind of do the tactical aspect of it. And so I had to jump back in, and I realized that every time I have to jump back in, it takes a toll on my mental health because it's not the expectation that I have of my team. So one of the learnings has been all the members of the team need to be in sync about every single client. And it doesn't really hold well at scale, and you need to kind of have a few people working with the client, so there's a redundancy in place. But when I had to jump in on a Friday evening, I was shot to shit because that's not what I was expecting. So being able to train your team, having really solid SOPs, handing it off to them so you can buy back your time and spend some of it so you can focus on your mental health and physical health and really be able to turn this off even though the computer is off. I think that that's the biggest challenge as a business owner that I've had. I continue to struggle with it, and I feel like it'll be a while before I'm out of that situation.
Yep, real quick, anything else? Were you going to chime in?
Like about what helps regarding mental health, or?
Anything you want to leave the audience with as we wrap up?
like for me, one pretty basic tip was just to turn off like all notifications, because like otherwise you get an email or you get a phone call and then you're like, oh damn, I need to act. Like as a founder, like you do it on the weekend, in the evening, in the night. And since I turn it off, it's like much more chilled.
Got to clear that red dot.
Okay, so we will wrap up. We have the after party tonight with the Western theme. Make sure to show up, bring your A game, and keep an eye out for the prizes, because I'm in charge of the prizes, and I cannot wait for people to see them. Nobody has seen them, not Rachel, nobody, and I am excited. So we're looking forward to that, and I think we're going to wrap up. Thanks for coming to my conference.